let's go to a phone caller. Hello, what's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, I'm Carol, and I'm calling from Texas.
Hello, Carol. What's your
Hi,
question
Carol.
tonight?
Hi. Well, I've always wondered in John 6:53. I know that in sola scriptura, as Protestants, they go specifically by the Bible, but it seems when it comes to this scripture, let me solemnly assure you, if you do not eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. How do Protestants interpret that? I never have understood. What do they think that means?
Yes, thank you for the question.
Well, it's interesting because she picked the hardest one for a Protestant to answer. I remember talking to a Bible teacher that I respect very, very much, and I asked this exact question: how can we come up with a purely symbolic view of this scripture, which is what they do? They say that eating is purely symbol. We have to take Christ into our lives and make him a part of our life, and it's purely symbolic. And this Bible teacher was honest enough that the response was, we break all of our own hermeneutical rules, or rules of interpretation, in John chapter 6.
And that's true.
That's exactly what happens. All the hermeneutics is just the rules of interpretation. That you should take something at its face value first, and there's just normal rules. And they break all of them. And an honest Bible scholar will tell you that they break all of them.
They may go something like, and I don't say they, I mean I did. Everything else taken very literally. We get to that, we'd say, oh, but he couldn't have been eating his own body and blood, I mean, that'd be cannibalism, that's wrong. So I mean, it's like all of a sudden we throw that out and we just kind of go gut level.
Right.
Another thing that we dealt with that, if you remember in John 6, yes, 6 times he says, eat my body, drink my blood. I mean, it's there 6 times.
Yeah, I think part of it too, Marcus, is just a lack of willingness to really study that scripture and follow it wherever it leads us. And I plead guilty. For 40 years, I read John chapter 6 and took it totally symbolically. And for some reason, for you and for me, God's grace came and the scales fell from my eyes, and we said, there's no way that that can be symbolic. And there is a church that teaches that, and I want to be a part of that church. But for 40 years, I didn't.
That's right. You know that there's that joke about the Indian in New York City, and he heard a cricket. Remember that story about hearing the cricket? And the person said, how'd you hear that cricket? And he says, you'll hear what you want to hear. And then he threw some change on the sidewalk, and every New Yorker stopped. And looked, And I mean, that's true. In John 6, what I preached on was not this. I preached on believing. Because the most common word in John chapter 6 is believing. Believing and following. And that was what the whole issue of eating my body and drink my blood was all about. Are you going to believe me enough to do what I tell you to do? And in the end, most of the disciples left because it was hard words. And when Paul finally says, when Jesus finally says to Peter, what are you going to do? He didn't say it wasn't easy. It was hard. Following Scripture the way Catholics are called to, which is often very literally, it's not easy. It's hard.
Right, what Peter basically said is, I would leave and go somewhere else if I could figure out where else to go. It was very hard for Peter as well.
Wonderful.